This impressive fortress, located around 100 kilometers from Jaipur in Rajasthan, was once the stronghold of the Maharajas of Kishangarh. Founded in the early 17th century by a prince from Jodhpur, Kishan Singh, Kishangarh was a princely state, a powerful Rajput Thikana. The Maharajas of Kishangarh had a long and prosperous rule spanning more than 300 years. And they have left behind a stunning legacy in art and architecture. Today, Kishangarh is famous for its beautiful tradition of miniature paintings, which developed as the Kishangarh School of Art. It is often acknowledged as one of the finest painting styles from this region. While Kishangarh presents a wonderful amalgamation of art and history, it is also a place that tells the story of how cuisines and cultures evolved. Adhiraj Singh, a national-level trap shooter and culinary expert in his early 30s, has spent his life in Kishangarh and belongs to the erstwhile royal family that ruled here since the early 1600s. In this special of cuisines and cultures, he takes us on a culinary journey, telling us about one of his favorites, an iconic recipe of the Rajputs, the Jungli Mas.
Hi, my name is Adhiraj. I'm from a place called Kishangarh. It's in the heart of Rajasthan. It's right next to the capital Jaipur. It's an erstwhile princely state. So I belong to the royal family of Kishangarh. And this state was founded in the early 1600s by Raja Kishan Singh Ji, who was the Prince of Jodhpur. So we trace our lineage to Jodhpur. We are a Rathore state. So Kishangarh shares a good relationship with Jodhpur and the Ajmera states, which is right on the border. My ancestors ruled for a good 200 odd years till the state was merged with the Union of India in 1947. The last sovereign ruler of this erstwhile state was Maharaja Sumer Singh Ji, my grandfather. And during the course of years, Kishangarh was famous for its miniature paintings. I'm a national level trap shooter and I'm a food enthusiast, so I keep cooking every day. I've always had a keen interest in the culinary arts. I was cooking since I was quite young, and then I pursued it. I learned about all the flavors and everything from my father and my mother, but then I pursued it and I took it to a culinary school, which is with the Oberois in Gurgaon.
For Adhiraj, home has always meant spending time with his family and relishing food that his father cooked. Interestingly, Rajput rulers who lived their lives on the saddle, often spending time away hunting and traveling, took great interest in their food, and their culture and taste is well reflected in their cuisine even today.
So when earlier there used to be hunting camps and all, the ruler used to take great pride in cooking themselves, and they used to take an entourage of other guests and staff. So I would say it was predominantly focused on protein. So whatever you cooked, it was a style of cooking were like khad cooking, which is like you dig up a hole. It's called khad in the local language over here, and you place whatever you have, like let's say a rabbit or a small antelope or whatever, and you let it cook for 2-3 hours. And in those 2-3 hours, you used to go out and source for more meat. And it used to be like a jolly camp where everybody used to have a great time and focus on hunting and cooking. So I grew up eating a lot of food items because my grandfather, during my grandfather's time, he was fond of hosting a lot of people, Maharaja Sumer Singh Ji, and he organized a lot of, there were festivals like Gangaur, there were Holi, Diwali. They used to have hunting camps where you used to go for duck shoots and other game birds. So he was a good host and he liked calling people over. So I remember I've seen old menus in which there are different dishes for every day, and like if they're like repeat guests, then they don't get the same dishes. And there was a lot of continental food also served that time. This was like 1940s, 1950s. So things like roast goose and ham and shepherd's pie, caramel custard, all these things have influenced the erstwhile rulers and the food culture all over the state. So I grew up eating all that, and I remember the first time I cooked was maybe when I was, I think 11, 12. I made an omelette for myself, nothing fancy, but I picked up a lot of things about flavor and balance and ingredients from my father. He was a keen chef and he enjoyed his cooking. He used to cook every day. After which I developed a taste. I understood food, so that I went to the Oberoi Culinary Institute, where I learned like cooking and techniques and different ingredients and how to work them together. And that's when I picked up cooking. So I've been cooking for at least like 20 years now. So after I researched about food and I learned a lot about food, I developed this keen interest about learning, let's say, old recipes of Rajasthan and the whole country. We're going to stick to Rajasthan, like sulas. So it's like a barbecue dish which is cooked with kachri and the local spices. And there are other curd preparations in which, as I told you, it's cooked in a hole. So I remember back in the day when my father used to cook, like he used to cook more, like let's say every day. So I used to keep asking him questions like, what are you putting? How is it going to turn out? What's going to happen after this? And he used to tell me very patiently. I remember very clearly. All those points, I can tell you, like if you want to cook from your heart, you have to be patient, you have to be confident, and you have to have the right things to do, like work with. And you can always experiment. There's no hard and fast rule with cooking. There are no set recipes. There are no secret recipes, because I don't believe in them. And you can do whatever you want with the recipe. For example, I put Worcester sauce in my meat curries, which is weird, but it goes well with the curry. So it's up to you. That's how I started experimenting with flavors. I started cooking with new ingredients, which in the hardcore, as they say, Rajasthan cuisine weren't available, like tomatoes and Worcester sauce. I used to put sugar also sometimes. I know some people will hate me for it, but that's how I do work. And yeah, so I used to experiment and served my dishes to a lot of guests when I was working in the hotels, and they all tend to like it. So that gave me confidence, and that's how you go. That's how you carry your dishes, and you represent your dishes.
It was hard for Adhiraj to stay away from his roots. He decided to follow the passion that he shared with his father, but took his love for food to the next level. He studied culinary arts, worked as a professional chef, and tried to add his own flavor to the traditional cuisine that he had grown up with. Rajasthan's harsh terrain and rough climatic condition left people with little to experiment with when it came to food. Being dry land, there wasn't much that could grow here. Over the years, meat came to dominate the meals in many areas of Rajasthan. But how did the royal Rajput culture influence the cuisine here, and what made it so unique?
So an important part of the Rajput culture was its cuisine, because Rajput, being a Kshatriya clan, they were always on the move, conquering, defending, or in peacetime they used to enjoy hunting. So food was very important. It was a part of the culture, predominantly meat-eating culture, but also a few vegetarian options. But as Rajasthan is a desert state, there were not many vegetables that grew over here. So, like for example, tomatoes and other green vegetables weren't that readily available. So we focused on lentils like chana dal and moong dal, or anything to do with besan and dairy, which was chas and yogurt, but predominantly meat, because the Rajputs used to enjoy hunting, and whatever you got those days was on the table, because there were no refrigerators, nothing. So that's how it was. The main feature of the Rajput cuisine is that you stay true to the ingredients you're using. Very few, but like you don't taste anything which is not required in the dish. Like for example, jhangli mas and khad cooking. So you have only ghee and meat and salt and chili. That's it. So you actually taste everything that goes in the dish, and everything complements each other in a way that is just a perfect marriage of ingredients. So the regional variations in food in Rajasthan were also there, in which different parts, more or less the cuisine is the same, but it depended on the ingredients you found that time. Because if you go up north near Haryana, Punjab, that side, you had things like mustard oil, and you had other lentils like urad dal and all that, which you didn't find that much over here. Whereas if you go to Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, the hardcore Rajasthan desert, it was mostly dairy and meat. So that's what people focused on that time, because they didn't have an option that time. So there were trades like in terms of dry spices and all that, but nothing more than that. Whereas it was influenced by a lot of things, like for example the Mughals and the British. So use of nuts. Then the British came, and there are records of the rulers in Rajasthan serving roast items like roast goose or something, like stuffed goose and shepherd's pie. But more or less the cuisine in Rajasthan all over is the same. It's just the ingredients that matter, because there are different ingredients everywhere. For example, this dish everybody knows is called lal mas. So lal mas is a very commercial term. Early on in the day, you could get lal mas in any Rajput household or any meat eater's household. But again, the things, the medium and the ingredients that you're using in cooking were different. For example, if you cook lal mas up north, you would use mustard oil and ghee. In Jaisalmer and all, where there are not too many mustard fields and all that, no oil, you would use just ghee. And you go down, you'll use maybe a lot of other things like tomatoes also if you can. That is if you want to. Plus the use of kachri. So in the erstwhile state of Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, Bikaner, the hardcore desert states, there's a cucumber family. It's called kachri. It's a tenderizing agent, and it's sour. So you use it in place of curd sometimes, or in place of lemon. So back in the day, the easier thing to kill were, let's say, antelope, venison and wild boar, because they're big and you can get them with an arrow. Birds, not so much, because back in like that time you didn't have firearms. That only happened after the Mughals came in. They got gunpowder and the use of punt guns, which was guns shooting fine pellets. So then obviously it led to shooting ducks, shooting cranes. Mughals were quite fond of cranes and ducks and like bird life, waterfowl basically. So that's how it evolved. Nowadays, everything is available. You can get anything in the supermarket. So as I told you, I've been experimenting with food, and I like tweaking recipes. So today I'll show you something. It's called jhangli mas, and I'll show you my version of it. Jhangli mas is basically used. It used to be cooked in the jungle when they used to go out for the hunting camps. Very few ingredients. Obviously, you couldn't carry much, and it was just meat and chili and salt and ghee. But I'm going to be adding a little onions and garlic and even hing. So yeah, it's going to taste better than that, I'm sure. So today I'm going to be cooking jhangli mas. In the authentic recipe, you just have 4 or 5 things to put, which is like chilies, meat, salt and ghee. That's it. But it's a bit hardcore, but today's viewers you can try new things with the recipe. So I'm going to add onions and garlic and a bit of hing. So we're going to start with some ghee. So we don't want the ghee to smoke too much, so we just wait till the ghee is the right heat. we're going to add some bay leaves and a stick of cinnamon. This gives a nice touch to it. And then we're going to add some onions. And like a half teaspoon of hing. After adding the onions, you don't want the onions to brown because that will give a color to the recipe. So we just want it like translucent. So as they turn pink, I'm going to add some salt so that it takes out some of its water. And then I'm going to add some red chilies. So these red chilies are not that hot. I've picked them myself from the market. These have more of color and less of spice. So it has a good flavor. So you can add these mirchis. So we're going to add half of the red chilies and we're going to save it for the half for later. Depending on the mirchis you get at home, some people might purchase it from the supermarket. It could be hot, it could be really hot sometimes. So I suggest if it's hot, you taste it and then you soak it in warm water and remove the seeds and the membrane. So that'll reduce the spice level. Now is the time to add the mutton. I'm using goat, which is cut into like boneless pieces, shanks and chops. You can use any meat you want. You can use chicken, you can use country chicken, you can use quail. Quail tastes nice with this. What we want the meat to do is just lose out water and turn brown. So for which we're going to add the remainder of the pink salt. Authentically they used Sinda Namak, which is rock salt, but I'm using Himalayan pink salt. You can use any salt if you want. And now let's add the remaining chilies. I'm putting like 2 fistfuls, so that's quite hot. But again, depends on the chili. Now that you can see, it's turning a bit reddish. The chilies are doing its job. Now is the time, like traditionally garlic doesn't go in this recipe, but I add it because it just gives a better flavor. So sliced garlic, whole garlic, chopped garlic, whatever you want to use, you can use. Basically this recipe comes from an olden time when you used to go hunting. You just couldn't carry much. You just had basic ingredients, basic ration to carry, which was ghee, very important, chili and salt. So this recipe, you just use chili, ghee, salt and water, that's it. And whatever meat you're shooting, like if you shoot wild boar, venison or whatever, back in the day obviously, now you can use whatever you want. So the idea is to go shooting, get your whatever you get, clean it, process it. You don't have to wash it because you need the blood in the recipe. It gives, blood is a good thickening agent. It gives a good viscosity to the gravy. But just now, obviously, you're going to be sourcing your meat from the local butcher, so I suggest you wash your meat. This usually takes around 2 hours. So we've added everything. We're just going to add some water and then we're just going to let it cook. Let it simmer. If you're in a hurry, you can use a pressure cooker. You can do whatever you want. There's no hard and fast rule. But just be careful. Like if you want your meat to be of a certain doneness, so you have to cook accordingly. So now it's been like around 45 minutes and you can see it's turned red. The ghee has done its job. The meat is nicely roasted. This is the time to add your curd. Like it's not done like that, but I add it because it gives a good thickness to the gravy and it cuts a bit of heat. And just make it a point that you stir in the dish till you get it to a boil, because otherwise the curd will split. Now just cover it and let it simmer for 30 minutes and So as you can see the color, the chilies have done their job. It is a bit spicy, mind you, but well, that's how it's supposed to be. The meat has to be falling off the bone, or if you like it a bit tough, it's up to you. And it's best served with some roti or bati, which is like a dough ball made with some coarse flour. And if you want, you can add some garnish. Why not add some gold? There you go. This is how it's supposed to look like. That's your jangli mas, my style.